Hi everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Librarian California, where today I'm going to be reviewing The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. It was published May 19th, 2020. It is 517 pages. We'll get back to that. It is way too long, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. It needs to be a lot shorter. So it was published by Scholastic, and basically the premise, and this is going to be as spoiler-free as I can make it, is it's a villain origin story of President Snow. It starts with the 10th Hunger Games, and basically, so if you're looking at the last book, which was the Prequel, we're looking basically 65 years earlier. So you're not going to see a lot of the same characters by any means. They weren't alive. So you will see the president. Another character you may or may not remember from the original books and movie was Tigress. She ends up being President Snow's cousin. That's an interesting side note, I guess, because I feel like there was a lot of potential there. But like, say, for example, if you remember from the movie, like she's in it a hot second as they're making their way through the Capitol, and she protects Katniss and her crew for a couple hours or an evening to take cover as they advance towards President Snow's mansion. So I guess, I don't know why she's back. I mean, that character's role in this book is interesting, and I like her, and there's nothing wrong with her, but I don't understand why. Before we delve into this anymore, like right off the bat, one of the biggest problems I have with this book is the names. They're awful. They're hard to read. I don't even know how to pronounce half of them. Even President Snow, his name is like Coriolanus. I don't know if you've seen Read with Cindy's. She kind of talks about this book in one of her videos, and she's like, all I saw was the end said anus. And I had the same thought when I was reading it too. And I just couldn't continue over in my head just keeping reading that, but I also couldn't figure out what it was. So honestly, in my head, I just changed it to like Cornelius. So that was problematic. And that is not the only problematic name too. There's like Arachne crane, like it's Arachne. I don't know. Volumnia Gall, like thank God they just end up going by Dr. Gall for most of the book. Another major character is Sejanus. Again, I don't understand the fascination with like anus at the end. And I agree with Read with Cindy, like President Snow is a huge anus, and so it makes sense. But like, if you can't read the names in your head and they're distracting, like it's distracting. And so it doesn't make sense. Another character that's mentioned is Snow's father, Crassus, Crassus. Crassus. I don't understand. So the names are distracting. They totally should have been, vetted with a bunch of people. Like, can you pronounce this? When you read this, what do you read? Because honestly, I ended up changing them in my head as I was reading them because I thought they were hugely distracting. So anyways, so it starts with the 10th Hunger Games. President Snow is a teenager. You can notice I'm just going to call him President Snow because I can't stand his other name. So President Snow is a teenager, and basically this is like a villain origin story. It gives you some history of the games as it's like they're to their 10th year, and things that we might come to know later, or processes we might understand where they're starting. So it wasn't like the Hunger Games has always been the same. It's evolved over time, and the first decade was pretty rough because the Capitol was still recovering. So it's evolved. So we're at year 10. And basically Snow ends up being a mentor to one of the people in the Hunger Games. And that person is Lucy Baird, Baird, B-A-I-R-D, Baird, I guess it is. And she's from District 12. And so I would say most of the story is basically President Snow and her and being in the 10th Hunger Games. Now, the book is broken down into 3 parts. And I will say, like, overall, I gave this book like 3 stars. But if I could break them up a little bit differently, like I'd say books 1 and 2, like probably 4 stars. Like I was in them, I read them. But honestly, this almost became, you know, a did not finish, a DNF. Like honestly, I probably read books 1 and 2 in just like a couple nights. I was flying through them. Part 3 is awful. Honestly, it's 1 star. 2 star. I would say 2 stars if you only consider like the last 20 pages. And part 3, like just to give you like a showing, like it's the whole book is 517 pages. Part 3 is like page 323 to 517. It by far could at least have been 100 pages shorter. And so this is where I'm gonna kind of segue a little bit. Like I think this is a common problem with authors who have really successful franchises and trilogies. So first 3 books, great. You know, people like different parts of them and things, but like overall the trilogy, they're great. And I think editors and publishers just think like they can't do anything wrong. And honestly, when you have such success like that, like you need an editor who will rip you apart, okay? So in this case, if the editor did push back and Suzanne was like resistant and wouldn't make those changes, like that's on Suzanne Collins, that she didn't want to change anything or edit more. But honestly, if the editor thought this book was great, like Suzanne Collins needs a new editor. This was horrendous. Book 3, it honestly, page after page of him, like what is this? It was so boring, it was so slow, and it took me weeks to finish it because it was just that bad. And so this is crazy because I like flew through books 1 and 2. Book 3 took weeks, and I've held off on this review. Like I finished this book a while ago because I really wanted to know like weeks later, like what are my thoughts still on this book? And like, I mean, if you're a fan of the Hunger Games, I think you should read it. I mean, I do think it's a great series. I do think, you know, I love dystopian fiction. And so for that part, I think it's worth reading. I think, honestly, like, I'm more excited that I know there's a movie coming. I know that they confirmed in April 2020 that there's going to be a movie coming out, which I knew there was. I feel like half the stuff she writes, because she was a script writer, Suzanne Collins, it's all written for TVs and movies. And I think that is another problem that she faces, is that like translating that onto papers in a novel can be very difficult. And so I saw the script writer is Michael Arndt, and I don't know who he is, but there's a lot of work cut out for him. Because honestly, like book 3, for as long as it is, as long as it drug out, I'm like, this is maybe like 30 minutes of a movie, maybe more so, like an extra 30 minutes just on the last 20 pages. But honestly, like 15 minutes, I mean, there's so much that can be cut. It just isn't relevant. So I feel like I'll be interested to see the movie and just see like out of the book, I have a feeling that like parts 1 and 2 will be very prominent, and then part 3 will only be like a couple scenes here and there, and then like the ending, which it picked up and got a lot better. So we'll see. I always think the books are better, but I don't know in this case. Because unlike the other, I really liked the other 3 books. I really did. So I'm not a critic of the books by any means, and I'm just more criticizing. I loved the first 3 books. I listened to them on audiobooks. I love them. I still have them. I mean, I could definitely listen to them again or read them again. They were great, but oof. This book needed to be cut down, it needed to be edited, and I do think this is a common problem for people who are really, the more successful you get, people think that you're gold and that you are untouchable and that there's nothing, you don't need that pushback and editing and criticism, and I think this is a common problem. I think many of you probably have seen it many a times, and this is a case, like honestly, 100 pages could have been cut from part 3. It's just way too long, especially when you compare the other books. Like this book is oddly, I think, longer than all the other ones, and it doesn't need to be. So I don't know. It is too much. So anyways, again, if you're a fan of the Hunger Games, I think you should read it. But that's just kind of where I'm going to leave things at. Like book 1, yes. Part 1, yes. Part 2, yes. Part 3, oh no. And just like shake my damn head. Like, what was that? Like, we don't need to see that, and I'm not going to spoil it for people, but like, we don't need to see that of President Snow. We don't need to see this long, drawn out process when we know who he is. We know the type of person he is. Like, what the hell? Like, this is just so unnecessary. But anyways, I'm interested. Do you agree? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Do you see the book in different sections? Like, overall, the majority of it, parts 1 and 2, I liked. Part 3, I thought was terrible. So I'm curious to know what you think. Let me know. Put it in the comments below. Do you agree with me? Do you totally disagree with me? And, and you can, look on Goodreads. You can look on Amazon. You can look at different reviews. Like, people are all over the place on this. And I think that's warranted. I think some people love it because they just love the series and they want it to continue. Other people, I think, saw kind of what I saw and it was like, ooh, this had some problems and needed some serious editing. There's some great nuggets there, like, hands down. Like, this could have been a great book. It just needed to be 100 pages less. Because it is just not a good sign. Like I said, weeks for me to finish part 3 and then weeks for me to do this video just because I really want to think about like what was still sticking in my head. And really what stuck out with me is way too long. The names were terrible. They were hard to pronounce. I didn't know how to read them. I changed them in my head. And then really me asking like, why did I need to read a lot of this stuff that happened, particularly in part 3? Like, it's unnecessary. So anyways, let me know what you think. I'm just gonna wrap this up here, but enjoy it if you dive into it and read it. I hope you like it. I really do. I hope everybody likes every book that they pick up. It's just not always the case. Anyways, that's it for today's video. If you like to give it a thumbs up, please consider subscribing to my channel. And until next time, keep reading.